Today's video is sponsored by Into the
What's
AM.
going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot here today to share with you all my thoughts on the new TV Hulu Mini Series by the name of Mike. Now, this series will explore the wild and tragic and controversial life and career of heavyweight champion Mike Tyson. Now, full transparency, Hulu did send me over the first 5 episodes, and by the end of this review, I'm gonna let you all know if this series is worth checking out. We're gonna be breaking it all down here in this spoiler-free review, but before we get into it, if you all are watching one of my videos for the very first time, I want to welcome you to the community. Now, if you yourself enjoy early movie reviews, daily and weekly TV breakdowns like we're doing today, as well as live streams, we'll consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. If you enjoyed the video, let's give this video a thumbs up. Let's try to get this to 250 plus likes, but also hit that share button. If you know someone that's interested in watching this series, go ahead and share this video with them. But more importantly, I want to know your thoughts on this series. Now, on August 25th, and I'm going to probably put the video out that day or the day before, they're going to be releasing the first 2 episodes. Now, once you've seen those episodes, I want to know your thoughts, your pros, your cons, what worked, what didn't work, and more importantly, will you be watching this on a week-to-week basis? Let's talk about it in the comments below. So going into Mike, listen, y'all, I'm a 90s kid. Growing up in the 90s, there was everyone I knew the 3 Mikes, and I'm talking about globally, right? I'm talking Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, and Mike Tyson, Iron Mike, the most baddest man on the planet. And growing up as a kid, I wasn't really into boxing. I was more of a basketball, football fan. But I remember going to my friend's house, going over to a family member's house on their big-ass box TVs, watching Mike Tyson. I'm like, hold on. Why is everyone, we got this party, it's like a Super Bowl. This is like a 90-second fight. I mean, the man was a bad you-know-what. So growing up, I knew Mike Tyson as the dominant boxer as he was. But as I gotten older and as well as Mike got older, I started to understand, okay, who is Mike Tyson outside the ring, right? The man that kind of has his own podcast and his YouTube channel. And he kind of recalls all those mistakes he's made in the career, the peak of his career. And that's what this show is focusing on. So one thing before we get into the breakdown, I will say I know that some people probably won't watch this series for the simple fact that Mike Tyson himself doesn't endorse the show. He did not give them the blessing to tell his side of the story. And I am very much looking forward to, I've seen some, docs on his life. And again, I've seen his podcast. I've listened to his podcast, watched his YouTube channel of him talking about his life. And I know he's going to maybe have a movie with Jamie Foxx has been talked about for 40 years or so. But neither here nor there. Mike Tyson did not endorse the show. So I know people do know that. Some people don't know that. But without that being said, I'm going to give you all my honest thoughts, even though I am a Mike Tyson fan and some of the decisions they make in the show are dramatized and kind of made up, but neither here nor there. Let's talk about it. First and foremost, you have behind the series is Greg Gillespie, who I'm a fan of. You might know him from I, Tonya, Cinderella, and most recently, even on Hulu, he did Pam and Tommy, which I didn't finish that series, but from the first 5 or 6 episodes I saw, very fantastic. So he's an executive producer. He directed one of the episodes. Also, he has his business partner, writing partner, executive producer, Steven Rogers, who's really kind of the head of the show. And Margot Robbie's executive producer, and even Trevante Rhodes, who plays Mike in the series, is executive producer. So they have a pretty talented team involved in this series, and focusing on the first 2 episodes, and then we'll get into episode 3, 4, and 5, and ultimately, does the series work by the end of this review? Episode 1 was okay for me, right? And episode 1 is titled Thief. Now, again, not giving away the whole story, but just the foundation of episode 1 is young Mike Tyson career, or to say his life as a kid, and seeing him and his mom. He didn't have his dad growing up in New York, and unfortunately, his mom seemed to love him, make sure he's taken care of and putting food on the table and a roof over his head. But unfortunately, she found herself in these very toxic and just a lot of domestic violence growing up. And with Mike seeing that on a daily basis, he found himself on rooftops, taking care of pigeons. He found himself in the streets, robbing and stealing. And in that first episode, and we'll talk about it a little bit later more in depth, but it felt so quick, right? For me, it's about 24 minutes long. And to be honest with you all, a lot of the episodes are pretty short, which we'll talk about as far as not really diving into the nuances of these stories. But episode 1 was just an okay episode. Again, I appreciate what it was trying to do, but it just went by too quick and really didn't, again, focus on the depth and the repercussions of what living in that type of lifestyle could do to someone. Again, they highlight a lot of that stuff, but they don't really dive deep into it. It wasn't really, for me, into episode 2 where I'm like, okay, this is what we're getting into, because just to kind of pull it back a little bit, the way that they structure this story, again, if you've seen Greg Gillespie's previous work, again, Tonya, for example, there's a lot of wall breaking the fourth wall. And the way that the story is being told is we see Mike Tyson, I think it's 2007, talking to an audience, and this is Mike with his tattoo on his face. He's telling the audience about his life. So we're the audience, and he's literally telling the audience about his life. So he's like, again, breaking the fourth wall, kind of talking to the audience, saying what really went down, what really didn't go down. And in episode 2, focus is a word I want to use a lot in this series breakdown. Episode 2 was one of the most focused episodes because it showed Mike Tyson from the age of 10 to 14, being in and out of jail, him coming across a father figure played by Harvey Keitel, who plays Cuss, one of his managers, someone he looked up to, someone he ended up living with, and having that structure really helped Mike, right? And he was able to gain more information about what it's like to be a boxer, what kind of career he can maybe shape, because prior to that, he was going to school and people were calling him, mentally challenged. And again, he didn't really have that reinforcement of you can be whatever you want to be. So episode 2 to me was, out of the 2 that you all will see on August 25th, was the strongest out of the 2. Not getting too much into the weeds, but now just kind of getting to my negatives. And this is where the series to me really wasn't working on a lot of points because, again, I mentioned number 1, the length of the episodes. Episode 2, again, is a little bit long. It was about 30 minutes. And I thought, again, focus. That's the word, right? Focus was the thing in episode 2. But when you all see in future episodes, if you stick around watching this series, episode 3 to me was kind of the epitome of what I didn't like about the first 3 episodes. And that is, they just are showing us the highlights of things. Now, episode 3, which I want to call is, I believe it was titled Lover, which focuses on the relationship between Robin Gibbons and Mike Tyson. And if you all know the story, or if you don't know the story, you'll get a little bit of it in this episode. Young puppy love. And unfortunately, what comes with young love is not really knowing the person who you are marrying. And that's ultimately what they did at that young age. And we see a glimpse of, again, highlights. They just are going by this relationship and just showing you just little key moments of the relationship, but not diving into the nuance of what shaped this relationship and ultimately becoming a very toxic domestic violence. Going back to episode 1, you kind of can see where he saw those things at a young age and how he would see love at an older age. So it didn't tie those things together. And again, no offense to Laura, who plays Robin in this episode. I think she's a great young up-and-coming actress, but she was miscast. She did not fit the bill for me. Their chemistry, Trevante Rhodes and her, was not great in that episode. And again, it was just a highlight. To me, episodes 1 through 3, taking away episode 2, it seemed to me like the writers and the directors went to Wikipedia and just took what they saw on Wikipedia and put it on the screen. Because again, it's just going through the weeds, rushing through the story, not really focusing or allowing the audience, I'll just speak for myself, it didn't allow us to breathe. It didn't allow us to sit in the scenes. It didn't really allow things to draw out and really develop within this character. But I will say, backtrack a little bit, Trevante Rhodes, he plays Mike Tyson, and for the first 3 episodes, I thought his performance was okay. I felt like the direction they gave Trevante was to really be Mike, do the mannerisms, talk like Mike, the baddest man on the planet, and really, in his hand motion, he did an impersonation of Mike. He didn't really play Mike Tyson to me, right? I felt like they were like, here's Mike on interviews, here's Mike that we've seen on different accounts, and I felt like they wanted him to imitate Mike, but not really play an actor portraying Mike. So that, again, I applaud Trevante Rhodes when he was able to act versus when they wanted him to impersonate Mike. So episodes 1 and 2, again, I mentioned this to recap. Episode 2 is the best out of the 2, from my personal opinion. Let me know your thoughts on that once you see the first 2 episodes. Episode 3 is the weakest of the series that I've seen so far. But then I'm here to tell you all, episodes 4 and 5, which episodes 4 is titled Meal Ticket and episode 5 is titled Desiree. Meal Ticket to me is when the show was at its height. As far as, again, the first 5 episodes, it was extremely focused because it shows a relationship between Mike and Don King. Yet again, another figure that's almost like a father figure for Mike. And without getting into the weeds, at this point in his career, again, if you know Mike Tyson, you know that he suffered a lot of loss from his family, someone that he loved as a kid, as far as his previous manager. So now he has another father figure-ish type of person in Don King. And episode 4 shows you young Don, his mindset. money being the first thing first, right? And also what it's like being black in America. Because previously, his previous owners and management were all white men. Now, they wanted the best for Mike, especially Cuss. With him growing up and him letting him live with him in the family, he wanted the best for Mike. But again, these are white men trying to help this black man obtain this level of power. Now, I don't want to say there's a disconnect, but obviously there's not the nuance of what it's like to be a black successful man in this industry and how people will look at him. And that's where episode 4 showed you a little bit of Don King's perspective, played by Russell Hornsby, who I thought was great in the role, and showing you how he perceived the situation, but also how Mike was kind of taken advantage of in the situation. And I thought, again, without giving too much away, episode 4 at that point was my favorite. Now, I'm here to tell you, and again, based on the first 3 episodes, I would tell you all, it might not be something you have to drop what you're doing and watching right away, but when you all get to those 4th and this 5th episode titled Desiree, episode 5 is worth the watching of this series, just episode 5 alone. Episode 5 focuses on the 18-year-old Desiree, I believe her last name was Washington, and her meeting Mike Tyson at the age of 18 and sexual assault. If you all know Mike Tyson, he was convicted. He was, found guilty. He was sentenced to 6 years. I think he only served 3. And that episode to me, fantastic. It focused, again, focus is that word. In episode 2, 4, and 5 are the most focused. It shows you her account. It shows you her perspective. And the way they break the fourth wall was the most creative in the series. And just getting her side of the story, but also putting Mike in the background a little bit and seeing that quote-unquote monster that people wanted him to be. So, again, I don't want to give too much away, but episodes 2, 4, and 5 were, to me, the episode at its best. So that kind of brings me to that question I posed to you all at the beginning of this review. Is this series worth your time? Should you watch this series? I say yes. Now, again, preparing you all, I think that one of my biggest criticisms that each episode feels like a chapter in a book, and sometimes things are just rushed by, fast forward. We don't sit in the scene. We don't get the nuances, but when the show is focused, 2, 4, and 5, the show really does show you, again, a black man in America, his tragedies growing up as a kid, him missing and seeking love from others, and how that can kind of convolute and kind of hurt his decision-making in regards to relationships he found himself in, the way he spent money and not knowing how to manage money, allowing people to take advantage of him. That's when I thought that the series was at its best. So again, I can't rate the series because I've only seen the first 5, and this is an 8-episode miniseries. But based on those first 5 episodes, I have more positive things to say than negative. Because again, episode 2, 4, and 5 were fantastic. Episodes 1 and 3, not the best, especially episode 3 was the worst for me. But overall, give it a watch. Now, I will say I think this show would be better as just a binge, drop all the episodes at once. But unfortunately, I don't say unfortunately, but Hulu's decision is they're going to be releasing, at least from the publicist's perspective, they're going to be releasing 2 episodes per week. So it's going to be, the next month you'll have 2 episodes a day. And I think episode 8 will be its own episode on its finale. So I liked what I saw for the most part, but there are some criticisms that I have to say in regards to, again, it feels rushed. The nuances, we don't get to sit in scenes, and I wish that they would have casted some other people in different roles. But Trevante Rhodes, he does do his thing. When he's able to act, he's able to show you why he's a great actor, and I think he's a really fantastic actor. And there's some scenes, there's a lot of sex and rock and roll and drugs in this show, but I thought Trevante was great. I mentioned Harvey Keitel is great. Those, and also Russell Hornsby and the young lady that plays Desiree Washington, those were the highlights of the performances. So, hey, this might have been like a little bit of a ramble, a little bit of rant at points, but overall, I would say give it a watch. And when you all do, let me know what you thought of, at least from the first 2 episodes. And as you all watch episode 3 and 4 and 5, come back to the review and let me know what you all thought of those episodes. So, hey, thank you all for watching this review. Thank you all for supporting the channel as always. I get into these conversations. I forget to bring up the sponsors of these videos. I gotta get better at that, right? But I want to take the time before we head out to thank the sponsor of this video, Into the AM, and let's hear a word from them right quick.
Today's video is sponsored by Into the AM. Into the AM is a clothing company with a variety of amazing products such as t-shirts, hoodies, jackets, shorts and underwear, headwear, and much more. Their t-shirts have unique designs, they're incredibly soft and extremely comfortable, and they're made to last. But the best part is you can get 10% off by using my discount code MovieFiles when you're selecting your new gear, which you can find that code in the description below. So again, shout out to Into the AM. They sponsor this video. I love their attire. If you all want to check out the website and you all see something you like, use my discount code and hit me up on the DM. Let me know if you bought one of the Into the AM apparel. So again, if you made it to this point in the video, put a glove, a boxing glove in the comment section. Thank you all for watching the video. Before you leave, make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. You don't miss any of my content. Hope you all are staying safe. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Come and join the community. Check out my other reviews that I covered on Hulu. Check out my most recent review, and we'll catch you all on the next breakdown.
Yeah.